Hi, everybody. I'm Pastor Darin with Grace Centers of Hope and Grace Gospel Fellowship, and welcome to the Grace Centered Podcast. We have a great conversation and story for you today from Jessica, who is actually our women's aftercare coordinator at Grace Centers of Hope, and she's got a great story. And if you want to learn more about Grace Centers of Hope or Grace Gospel Fellowship, you can go to our websites at gracecentersofhope.org or gracegospelfellowship.org and learn more about what we do and how to support and things like that. But this is Jessica. Hi, Jessica.
Hi. Thanks
Thank
for
you. Thank you for being here.
thanks for
Yeah.
having me.
So Jessica's got a great story. We're so thankful that she's willing to be vulnerable and share what God has done in her life. And I think that you'll be blessed by it and encouraged. And so I guess, Jessica, why don't you just go ahead, start wherever you want, and share whatever you want. See
Okay.
see where it goes.
All right. So I grew up in Warren. I was raised Catholic.
Hmm.
My parents divorced at a very young age, when I was very young, and that my dad moved to Oregon, and that left me feeling very abandoned and alone, and maybe caused me to be very depressed at a very young age. So the depression continued over the years. Um, at about age 11, I attempted to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was raised Catholic, so while I was attempting to commit suicide, taking pills, I was praying the rosary during it because I knew it was one of
Really?
those huge sins.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
So at 11 years old, you
hmm
you wanted to take your life
yes,
already.
yes.
And do you remember why at the time?
I would just felt so alone in the world. Like I had
Mm.
no one. When my dad left, I was daddy's girl and he was my everything. And
Mhm.
so I felt like I had no one. No one was there for me. That that was my only option.
Yeah, so you were living with your mom
Hmm.
here,
Yeah, my mom and my sister.
and your dad was in Oregon. Yeah,
Hmm.
so you just have the one sister.
Yep,
And how is she, younger or older?
she's older.
Okay.
Yeah,
How much older?
a year and a half.
Okay. And so yeah, I mean, do you remember being like previous to trying to take your life, like just being like contemplating that or being super depressed or like
Yeah, I remember
just
having thoughts all the time that I'd be better off if everyone would be better off if I was
mm,
gone. Um, I
wow.
didn't feel like I was very visible.
Mm,
Um, just very very lonely.
wow.
Yeah.
And yeah, because previous to that, you said you were kind of your daddy's girl, so
Hmm.
you guys were very close. How long had he been gone before you?
About
Okay.
4 or 5 years
Okay. So yeah, it was
before.
quite a while.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then so yeah, you're raised Catholic, right?
Yep.
And obviously, like, what do you remember having any idea of what you thought about God at that time?
I just thought he was a vengeful, angry God, that you sinned, you
Mm-hmm.
repented, but at the end you would have to answer for all your sins that you committed. And I didn't have a relationship with God at all. I
Mm-hmm.
I was afraid of God, actually.
Mm-hmm. But you knew, yeah. So in your mind, though, you had at least thought you learned enough to be like, I should be praying this rosary.
Hmm.
How
Yeah.
did you take? How did you attempt to take your life?
I took over-the-counter medications, Sudafed, Advil,
Mm-hmm.
anything that was in our medicine cabinet, I took it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what happened?
I woke up the next day, obviously, and hallucinated for multiple days. I lost track of, what day was what.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah,
So what were you, like, in fourth grade?
third or
Fifth?
fourth.
Wow.
Hmm. Yeah,
So did you have school the next day, or was this like over the summer or something?
I don't remember. I just remember the hallucinations. I'm not sure if it was summer.
Wow.
Yeah,
Did
I
somebody
don't.
find you, or your mom was like, "What in the world is?"
She ended up taking me to the hospital, and they
Mm-hmm.
ran tests. But then we got home and we never talked about it.
Really?
Hmm. Yeah,
Wow. Something. I mean, that young too.
yeah,
To wow, you never know what somebody is really going through
yeah.
out there. Even young people that, at that age to be that depressed, it's sad. Did you, so? yeah, and then on top of that, nothing happens at all. So
No,
you just did they? I mean, did you say I tried to take my life?
no,
Or you? Oh,
never,
you never.
never talked about it. I remember being at the hospital. I remember them running tests.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they pushed me in the hospital in a wheelchair because I was hallucinating so bad I couldn't even hardly walk.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but went home after that and still hallucinating. Didn't discuss it again.
Wow.
Hmm.
Did the hospital or anybody or doctors want you to like see social worker or psychiatrist or
No,
did you ever tell them? Did they ask you, hey, what did you take something?
no, I don't think so. I don't. The hospital's a little bit foggy, but I
Mm-hmm.
do remember
Okay.
entering and leaving. Um, but never really talked to me. They were talking to my mom a lot.
Okay. So yeah, so you go home, you never talk about it again,
Yeah.
and then what?
And then I went on the next few years, still depressed, just kind of trying to stuff all those feelings. Got into high school and got introduced to pot and started partying and using drugs on the weekend. Any drug that was offered to me, I
Mm-hmm.
experimented with and attempted using. Um, that continued, the partying continued and got worse and worse over time. I was about 19 and I got a DUI.
Mm-hmm. What was your mom like? During that whole time when you're out like partying and everything, did was anybody like worried of like what is Jessica doing, or
Yeah, she would try
then
talking to me and
she kind of know you were going off the rails a
yeah,
little bit?
she knew I was heading down the same path my dad was on. My dad was
Mm-hmm.
also an alcoholic and an
Okay.
addict, and she could see me following in his
Okay.
footsteps. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. That sort of makes sense. So yeah, she sees it happening. It kind of checks you once in a while, but it just kind of goes
Yeah.
runs its course. And then 19,
Yep.
you get a DUI. You said.
Yeah, I got a DUI. I got out of that. They only charged me with an MIP because I had pulled over and
Mm-hmm.
knew I was too drunk to drive. By the time the cop showed up, I wasn't physically driving, so they gave me a minor in possession.
Mm-hmm.
So I got out of that. I think I did a little bit of probation, nothing
Mm.
major, and then continued partying, drinking.
Were you working?
Yep, I worked at a bar at the
Okay.
time. So partying was a way of life to everyone that
Mm-hmm.
came to the bar and that I hung out with.
Yeah, sort of that subculture
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
bar and restaurant
Yeah.
working. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of became part of your routine, just sort of
Mhm.
partying, continuing all through that.
Yep. And then I got pregnant with my oldest son, Calvin. Um I moved back in with my mom and my stepdad because I couldn't afford the living situation that I was in anymore. So I wasn't raising him. I would go work all night
Mm-hmm.
long and then sleep all day long. And then just that rotation just kept going. My stepdad and my mom were basically raising my son.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I got pregnant with my daughter and I was,
How old were you then?
I was 29
Okay.
and then, um, I was still partying at the time. I was prescribed Vicodin for a car accident that I was in while I was
Mm.
pregnant with my oldest son. So I was taking pills while I was pregnant with her.
Okay.
After leaving an after hours bar one night, got pulled over and had Vicodin on me that wasn't mine and other drugs that weren't mine, that were illegal,
Mm-hmm.
and got put in jail. And
How? Yeah, you're 29 at this point.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So um, after that, I kind of made an agreement with God that I was going to be on the right path. And, if He got
Mm-hmm.
me out of this, I swear I wasn't going to be using anymore. And I was done with that. But I got out and I continued to use,
Mm-hmm.
continued taking pills. I was, like I said, pregnant with Michaela, my daughter. So I had the Vicodin prescribed to me. So I thought it was okay to take while I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
But after I had her, she was born addicted to Vicodin.
Oh wow.
So she went in the NICU and They didn't have to put her on morphine, but she did show signs of withdrawing from
Mm-hmm.
Vicodin.
Yeah, that probably is scary.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, probably a lot of guilt and everything when that's happening,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, you're 29, 30 at that
Mhm.
point. You've already made a deal with God, but that didn't work.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
So yeah, what happened? So did they? What happened in the hospital when that? Well, you were prescribed all that
I
medication.
was. A social worker came and talked to me,
So
but
you were being prescribed all that while you were
mhm.
pregnant too, yeah.
Yep.
And they knew,
Yep.
but you were in pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Mhm.
had a connection with a doctor, so
Mhm.
that eventually he got in trouble too for
Really?
over prescribing medications, narcotics.
Because uh
Not because
you
of my situation, because
okay.
of other multiple situations that
Mhm.
he had put patients in.
Did the hospital say anything to you when you had her or anything?
Just a social worker came and talked to me.
Mhm.
No CPS case was opened or anything.
Okay.
Didn't get it. Nothing came of it.
Mhm.
So I was still working at the bar. At this time, I'd been working there for 11, 12 years at this time. Um, and then one day after Michaela was about 4 months old, two detectives came to my grandparents' house where I was living and told them that my dad had passed away after being interrogated while in a holding cell.
Really?
Yeah.
Where was that at?
Macomb County Jail.
So so yeah, you're living with your who? Your
My
grandparents? Your
grandparents.
grandparents.
Hmm.
You're
Yeah.
working. Were you home at the time?
Yes. Yeah.
And two detectives with Macomb sheriffs or something.
Two detectives, Macomb County
Yeah.
detectives. Yes.
And and that your dad had say that again now.
He passed away in a holding cell after being interrogated for robbing a bank.
Really? So your dad robbed a bank
Hmm.
here because
Yeah.
he's no longer in Oregon, obviously.
Yeah.
And so how did that happen? Do you know or
They think he had a stroke and then a heart attack and passed away in the holding cell.
okay?
Yeah.
And so yeah, that had to be devastating.
Yeah. So um, that kind of broke me.
Mm,
So at that time, I was dating someone, my oldest son's father, who was using heroin.
okay.
And so I knew how to be numb and I wanted to be numb and stay numb. So I asked him to get me some heroin and I full blown started using heroin and stopped using the pills.
Wow. Yeah. So that's where you move
Mhm.
kind of up a level here,
Yeah.
right? And then wow. So weird. Now you're off and running.
Mhm.
What happens at that point?
So for the next year and a half, I was living in a nightmare. Um Waking up, using every single morning, couldn't get out of bed, couldn't change Michaela's diaper, couldn't take care of her unless I
Mm,
had my fix for the day.
yeah.
Um, I eventually lost my job at the bar, had to rely on my oldest son's father to find ways to hustle and get us drugs,
Hmm.
was completely dependent on him. And Michaela was dependent on me, and I couldn't take care of her and wouldn't take care of her without my drugs.
Right.
Yeah.
And so did CPS ever get called or anything like that? Or
No. So at this time, I had already lost custody of my son to my mom and my stepdad, my oldest son. And
why did
so
you actually lose custody of him?
I signed over custody while
Okay.
I was
All
in
right.
jail.
Okay.
So I had gotten pregnant again and had a really bad miscarriage at home.
Okay.
And just finally looked at the fact that I was either going to die or I was going to lose Michaela too.
Hmm.
And there was no one else to take care of her.
Yeah. What was like your? I mean, so if I just kind of start to put all this together, right? You're so as a, I mean, there's just got to be a ton of anger and hurt and
Mm-hmm.
suffering and pain, right? I mean, you're as a little girl, your dad leaves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which obviously we're super depressed
Yeah.
and everything else that might be going on to the point you try to take your life at 11 years old, and then there's no real response to that. It seems like,
Yeah.
um, and then you start using or drinking and everything, and then start getting caught up with the law,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then um, what, you have your daughter get caught up with the law again, and then your dad passes away.
Mhm.
I mean, there's just a lot happening there.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of unresolved stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's building up. And now, I mean, I'd imagine like when you were growing up, you had dreams, or I mean, what did you want to? This isn't what you.
I used to want to be a police officer.
That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, yeah. When
That
did that change?
that first MIP that I got kind of
Yeah,
changed my mind, and I thought maybe I'm not cut out to be a police officer.
yeah. This might, yeah, inhibit you from going to the
Yeah.
academy.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, you had dreams and hopes, right? And then
Mhm.
obviously, yeah, that began to just slip away by the time what you're in your early 30s now, strung out on heroin.
Yep.
I mean, what were you like? Do you remember what you were thinking at the time?
I was just thinking I was begging God to either help me find some way to get through this or take my life
Mm-hmm.
cuz I was done. I didn't want to live that way anymore. I wasn't living. It was
Mm-hmm.
just absolutely horrible.
Yeah, kind of at the end of your rope,
Mhm.
one or the other.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what did you do at that point?
So my I finally called and got into Sacred Heart
Okay.
and
You
I,
had never been to rehab at that point.
no,
You said.
I had been to outpatient treatment
Okay.
to appease the courts while I
Mm-hmm.
was in trouble a couple times, but never went into rehab. So I went to Sacred Heart. A couple days or so after being there, got sober and realized I was going home to live in the same situation I just left. And the only thing that had changed was I had been sober for a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I needed something longer. So my mom suggested I call Grace Centers of Hope.
Mm-hmm. How'd she
So
know about Grace Center's Hope?
we actually, my mom's company that I used to work for, we did volunteer work here years prior.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you remember doing the volunteer work?
on Seneca. Yep. Yeah,
Right on.
raking up the yards and stuff. Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
You probably how old were you when you were doing that?
18 or 19.
Yeah. So you yeah, you were doing your little partying,
Yeah,
but not.
yeah. I
Yeah.
wasn't in full blown addiction yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. Sorry, your mom calls. Your mom called here,
No,
or no? You she
I called
mentioned
here.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, so she suggested I call here. I called here. I got in a few days later, and that was completely by the grace of God because after I got here, I found out that it was a 4 to 6 week waiting list, and I got in 2 days.
Wow.
Yeah, with my daughter.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, Grace Centers of Hope has long-term residential programs, and one of them is for women with their kids, right? So yeah, they're so yeah. At that point, was that part of the reason why you even called here? Is because like this was a place you knew you could come with your child?
The that was the reason, and I knew I needed a longer term, and this was the only program I was aware of that had offered long term treatment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, you got in. Were you told it was going to be weeks when you called, or
No, so I called, and someone returned my phone call the next day and said, "Come in 2 days."
okay?
So I didn't find out until I was here that it was a 4 to 6
Okay.
week waiting
Yeah.
list.
Yeah. And so then you came here,
Yep.
right from Sacred Heart, or
I
okay.
had 1 day in between, but
Okay.
yeah, basically right from Sacred Heart.
So what was that like? What did you expect? What were you thinking at that point?
I was scared. I had no idea what to expect. This was
Mhm.
only my second rehab I'd ever been in, and the first one was just a month prior.
Yeah.
So I was very, very scared, closed off, quiet, reserved. Um,
Mhm.
and when staff started telling me they loved me and would
Mhm.
say it multiple times a day, just about every time they saw me
Yeah.
or saying hello or goodbye, that was completely unusual to me and uncomfortable at
Yeah.
first. But after a while, hearing it and actually believing it
Mhm.
was priceless.
Mhm.
It was feeling worthy of love that
Mm.
I hadn't felt in a really, really long time.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that why you think it was so uh foreign to
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
You probably didn't even realize that. Maybe.
No, I had heard it, but I didn't actually believe it and feel it
Mhm.
until after coming here.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's powerful. So yeah, you start to kind of settle in, I guess, or what does that journey look like?
So I started settling, and Michaela was still very closed off and
Mhm.
scared. She had never
How old is she?
she was 2.5.
Okay.
She had basically never left my grandparents' house except for to go over to some relative's house. So she was extremely scared.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you looked at her, she cried.
Yeah.
So she was confused. She didn't know what was going on. We had just left the only home she'd ever known. Um, but she started opening up. She went to the daycare. She wasn't talking either when we got here. And so the daycare within 6 months had her talking full blown sentences.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Praise
yeah,
God.
yeah.
Yeah. Wait, when was this? What year were you talking?
2015.
Okay. So yeah, like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the daycare is probably downtown at the
Mm-hmm.
time. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And so yeah, wow. So she came in not she came in, she was nonverbal when she
Mm-hmm.
came in.
Yeah. She could say yes or no, but she usually wouldn't. She would just shake her head.
Mm-hmm.
But that was about it. She couldn't speak.
Even before coming here.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No,
It wasn't just like she shut down because she came or something.
no. I took her through my whole addiction,
Okay.
my
Yeah.
whole heroin addiction. I took her
Mm-hmm.
along for the whole ride, brought her to
Mm-hmm.
trap houses with me, and I mean, she saw a lot that she shouldn't have seen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So she needed as much help or more,
yeah,
probably, right?
yeah,
So yeah, that's man, praise God. So within 6 weeks she started talking
yeah.
again.
6 months.
Oh, 6 months, sorry.
Yeah,
And still. Yeah.
yeah.
And wow, so at that point, I mean, like what were you thinking when you were in here? I mean, did you so they tell you it was a year, right? How did you feel about that?
I never planned on staying for the year.
Okay.
I knew it was a long term program, but I didn't realize it was an entire year until I came here.
Okay.
My plan was to stay for 3 months and then leave.
Okay.
Once that time got closer, I realized, okay, I'll give the year a try. And
Mhm.
once the program was nearing the end, I thought, I have no other option. I have to do aftercare.
Mhm.
So I entered the 2 year aftercare program, and that's actually where I met my now husband.
Okay. Yeah, for those of you that are maybe watching or listening and don't know, Grace Centers of Hope has a year-long life skills program, and then we also have a 2-year aftercare program that um, is primarily centered in Little Grace Village. It's a whole bunch of homes, dozens of homes, really, that we've renovated, and we call it Little Grace Village. And it's a community of people, and everybody who graduates out of our year-long program has the opportunity if they want to move into that community. So that's what, just so everybody else knows what we're talking about. You said that. So yeah, you came in thinking other people might need a year, but
Yeah,
if everybody else needs a year, I 3 months is good for me,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But yeah, right. So things maybe start to change a little bit. You become more willing to be like, okay, maybe this isn't so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it about like going through that kind of made you buy in more? Like, did your relationship with God change or?
So within a couple weeks, I would say around 3 weeks of being here, going to church, just one service really moved me,
Mm,
and I felt the Holy Spirit
mm,
and felt peace and this desire and urge, and that I was being called to the altar.
mm.
And so I went, and that's when I turned my life over to Christ.
Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, was there? Do you remember anything specific about like what was said or what guy was saying to you or what
No,
what
I
it
just
was that was?
remember so being so overwhelmed that just tears were just pouring.
Mm,
I just
mm.
I was speechless. Yeah.
You were at the end of your rope,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
then yeah, and there was somewhere to go for
Yeah.
life. Yeah,
Yeah. I
probably.
mean, just a month and a half prior, I was living in a nightmare and
Mm,
ready to give up my life, and then a month and a half later,
mm.
I just felt like I was had a whole new beginning.
Wow. Yeah, that's very powerful. I mean, to go, yeah, it's at the end of the rope where I like to tell people at the end of the rope is often what you don't expect. That's
Mhm.
where God tends to hang out.
Yeah. Yeah.
He hangs out at the end of the rope. So yeah, your relationship with God begins to change. I mean, did you start to learn something different about like your perception of who he was, or your
Yeah.
understanding of who he was?
I learned that he was a loving God, a forgiving God. He wasn't necessarily this vengeful, angry God who was watching your every move and out to
Mhm.
get you at the first mistake that you made. Um,
Mhm.
and that he wanted and yearned for a relationship with me,
Yeah.
and that I was his daughter. I never grasped that concept before.
Hmm. It had to be life giving to you,
Yeah,
especially your relationship with your own dad, right?
yeah, having a father
Mm-hmm.
that just a heavenly father that was perfect
Mm-hmm.
and loved me no matter what, unconditional love,
Yeah.
and was there for me no matter what.
Yeah, that's good. That's it's amazing grace what
Yeah,
it is. And so yeah, so 3 months kind of goes by, and you're like, well, maybe I'll give it a little longer. And
yeah,
then so yeah, you're like going to what classes and groups, that kind of thing.
yeah. So I took my program very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I almost left at one point because I made a mistake and
Mm.
that almost got me kicked out. So I almost left. So it wasn't an easy road.
Yeah.
Um, but I took my program, especially after that, very seriously. They would call me the super student in the classes because I would, ace the tests that we took.
Yeah.
If we had one
Yeah.
class that would give us tests, and I would always
Yeah.
ace those tests. I would stay up all night and study for them.
Really? That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Unlike what? What kind of test?
Theology.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah,
yeah,
right on.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I like that.
yeah, everyone would want to sit by me to copy off of me.
Oh goodness. Yeah, to cheat on your
Yeah,
your
yeah,
uh, your ethics
yeah.
test. So, yeah, so at some point you're like, all right, I need to hang out here. I need to
Mhm.
just stay here. Things are going good.
Yeah.
So you decide you're going to go into Little Grace Village into the
Mhm.
aftercare community, and that. So what happens at that point?
Moved into aftercare. I met my now husband at an aftercare event, an aftercare
Okay.
bonfire.
Okay. Rob.
So yes,
Yeah.
yes. Um, that's funny that I right before I met him, I swore off men. I kind of told God I'm done
Yeah.
picking because my picker is broken.
Yeah.
And I said, when you're ready for me to have a man, place him into my life.
Mm.
And then I met him.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's almost like the Lord was waiting for you to surrender.
Yeah.
When you're done,
Yeah.
I'll get started.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so you finally got done.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
Prince Charming came into your life.
Yeah.
Rob's a good drummer, by the way. Um, so, yeah, so you meet Rob, and then what happens?
We got married about 8, 9 months later, and then got pregnant with our son Rocco, my
Okay.
youngest. Yep.
Yeah.
And while I was pregnant with him, I was offered the position for women's aftercare coordinator
Okay.
by Miss Pamby,
Mm-hmm.
and I was shocked.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that phone call at the time. I was working at the daycare,
Mm-hmm.
at the Grace Center's
Yeah.
daycare. I wasn't expecting that phone call, and I was speechless and didn't give her an answer for a few months.
Okay.
Prayed on
I'll
it.
call you back in a few
Yeah,
months. Yeah.
yeah. Prayed on it a lot and talked
Mm-hmm.
about it with my husband because it was a huge opportunity, a huge
Mm-hmm.
decision to make. It's
Yeah.
not an easy job, so I didn't want to make the wrong choice.
Yeah. So obviously you ended up accepting that position.
Hmm.
What led you to think that you should, or what was your answer? How did you come to your answer?
I felt like it was my opportunity to give back the way that things were so freely given to me while I was going through the
Mm-hmm.
program, going through aftercare, that it was the only right answer
Mm-hmm.
to walk alongside women the way that Miss Pamby and other case managers walked alongside me while I was going through my trials and tribulations and my triumphs too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, did you ever think that, I mean, obviously you wanted to be a police officer. I
Hmm.
mean, have you ever stepped back and gone, like, how in the world that, like, I never dreamed that this is what I would be doing with my life, or,
A lot of times, yeah. I think I kind of feel like I'm still in like a dream.
mm-hmm.
Just to go from where I came from to feeling like the lowest person in the world and the worst person in the world to now being able to help people that are going through what I went through just a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Being given that opportunity is such a blessing and a gift.
Mm-hmm.
It's been unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard work.
Yeah.
I don't know that people, I don't know, maybe they do, uh, realize how difficult it really is to do ministry, to people who are lost and broken and just at the end of their rope. You get this, like, you want to save people because right, like
Hmm.
what can they can become and how things can change, and you can pour and pour and pour into somebody, and I'm sure it's challenging to do that on a daily basis. You do a very good job at it, by the way.
No,
I
thank
think you're
you.
amazing at what you do. There's a whole
Thanks.
bunch of reasons why I could tell you why. I mean, what for those of you who are watching, I feel like Jessica, you're so just consistent. Just there's no drama. For all those that are watching, follow her example of no drama. Uh, it just, but it just seems like you're a steady, continual. I don't know. You don't see. Do you get stressed out?
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure you get stressed out.
I get
Yeah.
quiet when I get stressed. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're pretty quiet in general. So are you stressed altogether?
No, no. I get a different kind of quiet. You can read it on
Okay.
my face.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You're kind of pensive
Well,
a
and
little bit.
God's stretched and grown me a lot
Yeah.
throughout not just the past 10 years, but just the
Mhm.
past um, 6, 7 years,
Mhm.
especially. It's with the way I get stressed and the things that stress me out. I don't
Mhm.
let the little things stress me out as much as I used to just a few years ago. Um, he's just really tested me
Mhm.
and put obstacles in my way to see how I would stretch and grow throughout those obstacles. It's been awesome to go through everything I've walked through.
Yeah. So with it being, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's part of the reason why the Lord even put you in that position, is to grow you.
Yeah.
A lot of, I think, leading has as much to do with our own walk with God,
Mhm.
like how God is stretching us as individuals as it is leading other people
Yeah.
and so with that being like a challenging thing to pour into people every day, and really want to pour into people, but them not receive it, or unfortunately not do a lot of what needs to happen for them to change their life. Like what empowers you to what motivates you to do what you do?
Seeing the things the girls overcome, their goals that they meet, um, when they get so much time clean and they celebrate those victories,
Mhm.
being able to watch them and know that I was there to walk alongside them during that
Mhm.
keeps me going. And, when a girl gets her license,
Mhm.
when they get their child back, when
Mhm.
they're restoring their families,
Yeah.
it's those things that might not seem too huge to some people that are actually so miraculous to me.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so powerful to
Yeah.
see, especially somebody who was just like you were able to see come in the door so hopeless and
Hmm.
broken, and then watch this whole new life emerge
Yeah.
from that. I mean, what would you say, like what makes up? So you're pouring into all these women's lives. You
Mhm.
guys are doing all types of different things. I mean, you're helping lead this aftercare, the women's aftercare program. So, like, what are the challenges do you see for women? Like, what would you say to somebody who's out there who's struggling or hurting, or like, what do you see holding people back? Or, I mean, what advice would you give to others, or maybe even, um, I don't know, family members out there that have loved ones or friends that are struggling. I mean, you're dealing with this every day
Mhm.
with people. leading them through this path? I mean, what's your sage wisdom say?
That, someone's never too far gone to
Mhm.
make that phone call. I know it's scary, and the thought of never being able to use again, to use
Mhm.
that crutch that you've used for so long and it's been a
Mhm.
part of your life and a part of you, that it's okay to ask for help, reach out, and just hand your life over.
Mhm. Yeah, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, I mean, you're already at your rock bottom.
Mhm.
You can only go up from there.
Yeah, I like to tell people that, you know, uh the bottom's wherever you put the shovel up,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
you're the one digging the hole.
Yeah.
So, right? And of course that's much easier said than done, to truly surrender
Yeah.
and make that phone call. The 1,000-pound phone that I
Yeah.
can't lift up. And yeah, so I mean, I'm sure there are people out there that are homeless, hurting, or on the verge of homelessness,
Mm.
uh, that would that be the primary thing you tell them to call, or what? I mean, like, what would you tell them to do right now?
Make that phone call. And I mean, what got me to finally make that phone call was realizing that I I didn't want to live the way I was living anymore. I
Mhm.
had nowhere else to turn. I had no one else to rely on. I just had to pick myself up and make that phone call and swallow my pride.
Mhm.
I think it was a huge pride thing, but it was humbling to make that phone call and walk through those doors. And it felt
Mhm.
so much better after I did.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are people out there going, "Yeah, Jessica, I'm sure, you know, that worked for you, but you have no idea where I'm at, what I've, how bad off I am, or you
Yeah.
know, that might work for some, but I'm too far gone, you know."
Yeah. I don't think anyone's ever too far gone. And unless you're in the grave, you're never too
Mhm.
far gone.
So what changed you? What I mean, so like if you obviously you see a little bit of what Jessica and I, or a little bit of Jessica now as we're talking, but I mean, if somebody were to meet you today, I mean, they would. I'm sure if you ever share your story with other people, they're probably like, "What?
Yeah.
I mean, this is
Yeah.
I can't see sweet little Jessica
Yeah.
doing this."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, what would you say changed you, or how have I mean, have you experienced healing? For a lot of have you been able to figure out why you did a lot of what you did, or why?
Absolutely. The classes I took in the program were helped me heal through a lot of traumas I went through. And then as I continued sharing my story, every time I share my story, I'm able to heal a little piece of me even
Mm-hmm.
more. Um, God kind of walks me through whatever I need to work on healing at that moment. And just so grateful that he's brought
Mm-hmm.
me here.
Yeah. What do you think that? How has the gospel been? How has it begun to heal you? You think?
Well, it gave me a relationship with God that I didn't have prior. And it healed that void, that piece that I was missing my whole life. I realized once I got here that it was God. It was that relationship with God. It was knowing that he's there for me and he loves me no matter what
Mm-hmm.
has been everything.
And then experiencing some of that through people. And
Yeah.
is there anything you do on a daily basis to kind of keep that fresh in you, or?
Bible study,
Mm-hmm.
mentors, reach
Mm-hmm.
out to my mentors as often as I need to, sometimes daily, sometimes weekly. Prayer, reading the Bible, staying in the
Mm-hmm.
Word.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but mainly prayer and my time with God is my main focus.
Yeah. Kind of that daily
Hmm.
surrender.
Yeah.
Yeah, even that idea of, people struggling about, like, oh my gosh, I can't use the rest of my life or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no sense in worrying about tomorrow. I mean,
Yeah.
Jesus said that, you know.
You worry about this second. Don't use in this second,
Yeah.
and then you worry about the
Yeah.
next second will worry about
Yeah, don't
itself.
pile on tomorrow.
Yeah.
You got enough problems today.
Yeah.
And just focus on, I mean, that really is a relationship with God is just a moment by moment thing,
Mhm.
for anybody, not just somebody who has struggled with addiction. So what about your kids? Like you mentioned, was it Michaela
Mhm.
that within 6 months she could start talking? I mean,
Yeah.
so they've obviously you've been part of Grace Centers of Hope in one capacity or another as just an employee or staff or whatever for 10 years.
Mhm.
So have they been able to get some? How do you deal with that part of it? Like, did you tell them what it was because your son's older,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, so my family, my children know why I'm here, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't know exactly what I came here for, but they know I came here for drug addiction
Mm-hmm.
and for substance abuse. I've been very open with my children about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want them to fall down the same path, and I tried to break that generational curse by coming here.
Yeah.
And but I don't want to keep that part of my life
Mm-hmm.
from them because I want them to know that everything I went through, they don't have to go through that. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have to fall into the addiction that I
Yeah.
went through. And so my kids are thriving.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. It's amazing what God can do. And I
Yeah,
know that, I mean, I'm sure there are people out there right now that if you know somebody who's hopeless and hurting, that yeah, we want to help, and I'm sure Jessica would be willing to help. My hope is that you sharing your story is gives other people encouragement, maybe to take that first step, um, or if you're out there and maybe you've been trying to help a loved one or somebody for years, and you just think how many years you were jammed up before finally coming to that place, and it just seems like it'll never happen. Um, but but it can, because God is able to do that, and um, with man things are impossible, but not with God. All things are possible. So Jessica, we thank you so much for sharing your story. If anybody wants to comment or get in touch with Jessica, we'd be more than happy to. I'm sure you'd be more than happy to talk with people.
absolutely.
If you want to learn more about Grace Centers of Hope or Grace Gospel Fellowship, our church, we'd love to connect with you. You can go to our website, gracecentersofhope.org or gracegospelfellowship.org. But other than that, thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.